Hello everyone, it's me, Jay, at Frenly Tales, at Crow Markets. I'm about to show off some of my Magic the Gathering decks today. See you here at Crow Markets. Hello everyone, I'm back with another Magic the Gathering deck. This time it's my Modern Mill deck, also known as a discarding deck. Let's take a closer look. Card number 1, Overwhelmed Apprentice. For 1 mana, you can play in your first turn, and it's got, whenever Overwhelmed Apprentice enters the battlefield, each opponent puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard, and you scry. Scrying, let's take a look. Scry is when you draw a card, you look at it, either you can put the top of your deck or the bottom. But this one is scry 2. So you look at 1, 2. Then you can choose either card to go on the top or the bottom, or both at the bottom. Just in case if you don't like that card, there's always a chance in your next turn to draw a new card. That's how scry works. But your opponents, each opponent, puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. That means they put 1, 2 cards in the graveyard, or also known as the discard pile. Startled Awake. This is a turn 4 turn play. I play it pretty much at the last possible moment in the game. For 4 mana, it has target opponent puts the top 13 cards of their library into his or her graveyard. That means back over here, top 13. Let's count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There we go. Look at that pile. 13 cards. And since it's a target opponent, you choose whatever opponents you have, you choose just the one. So if you're playing 1v1 or 1 versus 1, it's only your one opponent. If you have more players, you can choose which player you want them to discard 13. But also has for 5 mana, put Startled Awake from your graveyard onto the battlefield transformed. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery. It becomes a very small creature, a 1/1, but it has a unique gameplay. It's very difficult to hold the phone and this card at the same time. But what it does, pretty much, if you attack with it in the next turn, after you cast it as the creature, you can get Startled Awake this side back. That means you can, 2 more turns, you can mill another 13, or discard another 13. That's how it works. That's why I use it on the last possible turn if I need to use it. It costs too many turns to really play. I have it just in case.
Another 1 turn mill. For 1 mana or 1 colorless, tapping it, target player mills a card. That's why they just spend the first turn, tap it, 1. It's gone. Just like the previous card, also for 1 mana for your first turn, next turn, due to Summoning Sickness, target player puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. 1 turn drop, on your next turn you can tap it, there goes 1 card to their deck. Another 1 drop, but this one's a little bit better in a way. When it attacks, so on your second turn with it, Devoid, this card has no color, doesn't really do much, really, but Ingest. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles the top card of his or her library. So you take first card, and you put in exile zone. That means that card can't ever come back, ever. You won't be able to play it, you won't be able to return it from your graveyard to your hand. That card is gone. So your opponent has permanently lost 1 card from the top of their deck every time this creature deals combat damage to a player. Tormod's Crypt. For 0 mana, that means you don't get to use any mana to cast it at all. It's free to cast, unless your opponent has a card that says otherwise. Tap it, exile it. Exile all cards from target player's graveyard. That means look at that graveyard, it's nice and big. If I play that now, tap it, sacrifice it, put it into my own discard pile, all of their cards in that discard pile, gone from the game, they can't ever get that back. Ever. It's gone. It's gone for good. Removed from the game. They're gone. Good ability. One turn drop creature, but this creature can only really be casted only if your opponent has a creature. Let's take a look. Flash. You can flash it in on their turn. That means you can cast it during an opponent's turn instead of your turn. Flash. When Zulaport Duelist enters the battlefield, up to one target creature gets -2, -0 until the end of turn. Its control mills 2 cards. For one turn, they've just discarded 2 cards. Pretty good. The Flood. The Flood has arrived. I like this card. It's a 2-mana drop. It's perfect for this deck. Return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Exile Flood of Recollection. That means if I had a discard pile and there's some spells I want you to replay, I could choose an instant like this or a sorcery card like, where's the other one? I had it in here. What? Let's just pretend that I used this already and I want to replay it my next turn. I could get that back, then play it my next turn. Or that turn that I got it back from. Fractured Sanity. It's a 3-turn drop, 3 blue. Each opponent, not target opponent, each. That means if you're playing multiple players and they're all of your opponents, each of them mills 14. Also known as discarding. So they go over to their deck and
Discard each. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
It's 14 cards you just discarded. Each opponent. Each opponent discards. Please note, when it's their turn to draw their 1 card for their turn, from the top of their deck for their turn, if they can't draw, they lose. So 14 cards minus 60, because most of these modern decks are between 60 and maybe 65. That's a big chunk of their deck gone for each opponent. You won't be making friends in that game. Maddening Cacophony? Sorry, I can't pronounce that, but that's okay. It's a 2-mana drop, so you can play on your second turn. It's got Kicker 4, and has each opponent mills 8 cards. If this spell was kicked, instead, each opponent mills half their library rounded up. To pay Kicker, you have to pay 3 colorless and 1 blue, or 3 of any color and 1 blue mana. That's a bit high to cast that. That means since I have just 2, it's now 6 mana to cast that in total. If I play it, let you draw. So that means each opponent mills 8. That gives almost 15% of their deck in 2 turns. It's my kind of card. Just like the previous card, where they mill up to 8, this one mills 7. That's to one opponent, not each. But still, -7 in turn 2, that's pretty good. This is the best Planeswalker for discarding and mill decks. The best. It really is. It's got spells and abilities your opponents control. Can't cause their opponents to search their library. Pretty good if they're playing with non-basic lands. But it's -1. Comes into play with 5 loyalty counters. So its own ability will kill it off within 5 turns. But boy does it really play well. Target player. That means you choose a player. Puts the top 4 cards of their library to their graveyard. Then exile each opponent's graveyard. So if my opponent had all those cards there in the discard pile, it gets exiled along with the rest of the cards. Gone. It's gone for good. So they just milled 4 cards and the entire graveyard is gone. It's my kind of card. It's only 3 mana. 3 mana. That is super cheap to cast. It really is for 3 mana. And it's fun to play with. I'm terrible. I know I am. Here it is, my Ruin Crab. Now I talked about this one the other day. I actually have 3 or 4 of them in this deck. And boy does it really play well in this deck. It's got for 1 mana. For 1 mana, you can play on your first turn, Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent mills 3 cards. Or discard 3. So we'll play that. Some basic lands. Here we go. Here's one. So in your first turn, you need 1 blue to cast it. Now it won't trigger the landfall this turn because it didn't come. That card was not already in play when I brought out the land. On my second turn, land untaps. I draw a land. Let's see, I'm just borrowing a basic land. Here you go. Putting a basic land into play. Triggers. That means the effect will go off. That means whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent mills through it. So after I put that land down, I can discard top
3 cards in the deck. All opponents. So that goes 3.
But what happens if you played another Ruin Crab before you put down the new land? Let's take it back. So have the land. It's the second turn. You get a Ruin Crab. There's another one. Tapping 1 blue. Put down Ruin Crab. Put down the second land. Triggers. Both of them go off at the same time. For landfall. So whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent mills 3 cards. So they go over to their discard pile.
So instead of 3 cards, it's now 6 in total. That's
Plus 3 to each Ruin Crab every time. So that means if you had 3 of them out in total, every time that you put down a land, that's minus 9 cards to each opponent. Or if you had 4, that's minus 12 for each opponent for every land you put into play. It's pretty cool that way. So you can mill your opponent pretty much just with Ruin Crabs. There is another crab that has the same exact ability. It's an older card. I'm trying to get some myself, so I can put it into this crazy deck that just discards your opponent's deck. Also, this deck is not very expensive to build. It's actually quite affordable. Anyways, that's it for my modern deck of discarding and mill. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you here at Frenly Tales or at Frenly Magic. Friendly people, friendly magic. I'll see you here at Carrara Markets.